Welcome to the 7th episode of the Ambassadors Podcast. I'm your host, Haley. I'm here today with Barb. I met Barb at my current church. I appreciate how Barb obviously has a heart for God, the nations, and all people that she meets. Welcome, Barb.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks, Haley.
Do you prefer the city or the country?
I prefer the countryside, and I think pretty much all my life I've been in the countryside, little towns here and there when I was in school, but mostly, the country.
Nice. Do you have a favorite subject to learn about?
I love learning about other cultures. I love people, but especially foreign people, and just talking to them, engaging in conversation and trying to understand them. Yeah, that's probably my favorite subject.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Social studies probably in high school or?
Actually, I loved a lot of subjects. I also loved life science and nature.
Oh, cool.
And in college, I studied biology.
Oh, cool.
So, I love life science, animals.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What hobbies do you have?
I love, again, being outside, hiking. I like learning about nature and people. Kind of goes with that. Oh, also, I love eating and cooking international foods.
Oh.
So it could be Indian. I think years ago I was into Chinese food. Then it was Korean and Indian and Mediterranean. I like experimenting with food.
That's cool. Yeah. Are there any Christian books outside of the Bible that you recommend?
Just in general, I love missionary biographies, or right now I'm reading a lot about people that are believers, but they've been persecuted. I love like that kind of genre, I guess. One book I read recently that I really liked, it's called Defying Jihad, and it was about a girl in Pakistan. She actually volunteered to be a suicide bomber as a Muslim. And then not too long after that, like she was going to be prepared, God brought believers into her life and she became a Christian. And then she faced a lot of persecution. So I would really recommend that book. It was really good. Another one I really enjoyed was Evidence Not Seen. And that's about a missionary and her husband who were in World War II as missionaries. Then they got kind of captured by the Japanese and were in it. So just their story and how God provided. So I love those stories. Yeah, true stories. And just seeing how God's working today and working in the past, and it challenges me, really. It's like, would I do that?
Yeah. Do you have a favorite book of the Bible?
I would say, I guess Romans. I had to really think about it. I like James also, but Romans, it's heavy duty, but it really explains the gospel very, very well the whole way through. And I guess Romans is.
Who was in your immediate family growing up?
My mother and father, and I have an older sister, and that's it, and then me. So there are 4 of us.
Nice.
Yeah.
And who do you live with now?
My husband and my son. And then we have 3 daughters, but they have all moved out. 2 of them recently. So it went from 6 to 3 pretty fast.
Nice. Did you grow up in a Christian home? And if not, what was your religious background?
Yes, I did. My family went to Memorial United Methodist Church in Quarryville, and that's where I found the Lord. I heard the gospel there. My family was very loving and supportive, and I love my parents very much. They didn't really talk a lot about following the Lord, though. It was kind of more like your own personal thing. So how did I come to know the Lord was, I think, kind of interesting. If you're familiar with Quarryville, on the main street is a Dollar General store, and that's where I came to know Christ. But it wasn't that back then. Our church was being renovated. We walked down there and met down there for Sunday school, and our Sunday school teacher, I was 12 years old, told us to bring in questions, like the kids, any questions you have about the Bible or about following Christ or whatever. And I remember writing down little questions, some questions. It was really good, and I feel like the Lord was drawing me to himself. At that time, I really wanted to know, how do I get right with God, I guess. I knew there was something not right, I guess, and how do you go to heaven? And I don't remember exactly what she said, what my teacher said. I think it was something, that we're sinners and the only way to be saved is trusting in Jesus. He died on the cross, something like that. And she shared Romans 10:9. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is the Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Mm-hmm. And then she said, raise your hand if anyone wants to trust in Jesus, or, I forget how she said it, but I know I raised my hand. A couple other people did. And I believe that's when I was saved. And a few years after that, was kind of up and down, but God has been faithful to me. So that was a long time ago. I'm 58, so and it was cool too because after I accepted Christ, God gave me a desire to read the Bible. I don't think anyone told me, now go read your Bible. That was just like natural. I think the Lord wanted me to do that and gave me that desire, and I would write down things I was learning. It was really cool, like looking back how the Lord was working in my life. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, at that age, a lot of people don't want to sit still to read, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
And what were your priorities and values before following Christ, but maybe also then before maybe you took your faith seriously? So that could be earlier years before you were 12 or around that time, yeah.
I'm going to say more like, it's kind of hard to remember before 12, but I think, like I said, up and downs. So I think I still kind of was struggling with being popular and being liked, and I was like, I guess, competitive in sports and music and school, all of those. Like, I wanted to be really good at all of it, so being, I guess you'd say, making a name for myself, maybe, kind of like that, I think was really important. That shouldn't be my priority. I think God had to kind of show me. And I probably still lean toward that, maybe, struggle with that some of that.
What is something difficult you've gone through after being a Christian?
This is something that happened recently, the death of a real good friend of mine, like just 2 years ago. Yeah, she loved Jesus. So as far as like how that affected me, I think a lot more about heaven, because especially after she died, a lot more about what heaven might be like, and she's with him, and that gave me a lot of joy and hope, actually. It just helps me to think about where our home is. Our home is in heaven, not here, and that's been good. It's hard, and I still miss her a lot, but just the hope that we have is incredible.
Yeah.
If we are Jesus people. Yeah.
And how would you encourage someone who's lost someone close to them recently?
Yeah. I mean, if the person did trust in Jesus as their Savior, just to remember the promise that when we pass, when we die, we are in His presence, and the pain or the suffering that is in this world is gone. And this world, actually, I think it's beautiful. I love so much about this world, but like heaven is way better. I mean, we can't even imagine. So, and especially because that's where Jesus, our Savior, is. Who knows what we can do when we're there. So just remembering that, and the verses that remind us that we are going to be resurrected. Jesus conquered death, and He conquered it for us. So kind of remember His promises, I guess.
And how do you feel like your relationship with God changed through losing a close friend?
I mean, it's kind of the same answer, I think. Just maybe feeling closer to Jesus, probably. Actually, before she died, she was suffering physically in pain. She kept putting her hope in Jesus and didn't complain. I mean, a little, not, but really she didn't.
Wow.
She encouraged us. She encouraged me when I would come and visit her. I've had other people die, or my friend's child died, and that was like asking God, why? Why would you allow this? Knowing that God He's sovereign, and His ways are much higher than our ways. We don't understand. We can't have an answer for everything. Like when something bad happens like that, we don't really know, but we just trust that God has a purpose for it. So just, I guess, a deeper faith, I think, trusting Him.
How have spiritual habits impacted your relationship with God?
Yeah, I have a story to go with that question. So we were missionaries over in Mongolia, and then we had our children pretty quickly, 4 kids in a row, and it was a remote area, so just living took time. I don't know. We didn't have running water and so forth, but no excuses. But my life got really busy, so I think my prayer and devotional Bible reading suffered little by little, like kind of dwindling. So that was like on a negative side, and I think I started in that, like trusting more in my own strength, like to handle life. Years later, COVID happened. We were in America. We went back to Mongolia during COVID, and we had to have a week quarantine in a hotel room. And I was with one of my children. My husband was with another child. But we were stuck in that room. That was it, and actually it was really good because during that time I started getting my prayer life back in order. So that was back in 21 and 20, so like 5 years. I think it's a lot better. And yeah, and I can see God answering prayer, and that's been helping me to grow in my faith too, just trusting in him and not my own strength, and spending time with him. And whether it's prayer requests, but it's also confession. I need to work on more of confessing my sins. And then also about that time, a little before that, I read a book. It really helped me also to, instead of just like, oh, I'm going to read, through Matthew and I'm reading a chapter a day, which is kind of like what I was doing. And that's fine. But this was more like you pick a book, maybe it's James, and then you read through it many, many times over a period of time. And then I printed out the whole book, if it's a small book like that. But then I forget what it's called, but you circle things and you mark it up, what you printed out. And then there's a lot of questions you ask. That also helped me, I think, grow a lot rather than, oh, I can check off I read my chapter today. But this is more like diving deeper. And it was exciting because I actually was like growing and learning and, by reading the Bible. So that's more like in the last, 7 years or 8 years that.
Yeah.
So I think I was, I kind of was going down in Mongolia. Sounds crazy because I was a missionary. I'm just being frank.
Yeah. Is that like an inductive Bible study?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, I was like trying to think of the name. Yeah.
Inductive, yes.
And James 1:2 talks about having joy through trials. How have you learned to do that?
And again, kind of like what we're talking about when, especially when like a child died, but remembering that God's sovereign. We can't understand all that's happening and why, and he allows it, but just to remember and to trusting in him, crying out to God when we're in a trial, asking him to help us and give us strength and to keep our eyes on him and not to complain, but that's also, I think it's a lifelong learning lesson.
Yeah. What are you passionate about and why?
And I think I answered it a little bit before, but I just love people. I love engaging and seeing someone, and whether it's at the grocery store, the cashier, I try to show love and kindness that way. And I love that. It might be someone that looks like they're not having a good day. And especially if there's someone, they look like they're from a different country, they're speaking, they have an accent. I cannot help myself. I want to say, and I usually do, can I ask what country are you from? Or, where were you born? When I do that, I want to be careful and not be offensive. But oftentimes they're really happy that I am interested. I genuinely am interested in, or if I know a little bit about their country, they're just really happy and surprised. So that makes me happy too then.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what have you done for work?
I went to Mongolia when I was 30 or 29, yeah. So I was a missionary for 24 years. We were church planners, my husband and I, and we had, like I said, 4 children. So then I homeschooled the kids. When we were in Mongolia, I mostly was, taking care of the kids, our family, the house. And then we had a lot of visitors. Almost every day we had several visitors.
Oh, wow.
That would come. That was just part of the culture. And they were interested in us. As Americans and stuff. So maybe we had more visitors than normal. We moved back to America in 21, and since then I've been working at a place it's a community for Afghan refugees, and I'm helping or I'm taking care of the toddlers while their moms have an English class. So I head up that. There's a lot of volunteers, so
that's cool.
I love that too, because that gives me my, fills my passion for learning about other people and loving. And it's a Christian organization that we're hoping that many of them will come to know Christ eventually. So
yeah.
And then in my 20s, I worked at a park and taught nature lessons to kids that were coming on field trips. And I worked teaching all sorts of different adult education classes.
Oh, cool.
And one of them was kind of interesting. It was for kids that dropped out of high school.
Okay.
And they could go and complete the classes that they needed to complete, and they actually got a diploma. So it wasn't it's called GPA. It
GED.
Or GED, that's it.
Yeah.
It was a diploma. And so that was interesting because I don't know if I was ever sworn at before, but there I was. Because it was these are, anyway, it was interesting.
Yeah. Probably learned a lot.
I did.
That. Yeah.
But that was just a couple of them, but
Yeah. Gotcha.
it was exciting to see them graduate then.
Yeah.
So.
And how did you know God was calling you to international missions work?
So after I graduated from my 4-year degree college, I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. And one of my friends said, hey, why don't you go on a summer mission trip? That's what I'm doing or whatever. So I did that, and I went to Ecuador and came home and was like, I really think I want to, go overseas as a missionary. Just that experience gave me that desire. And then some people that were important in my life were encouraging me to, keep thinking about that and praying about it. One of my favorite singers back then was Keith Green. In his music, he had a tract that said, like, why I should go to the mission field. And it's really neat because my husband, which we had not met at that point, but that's how God used the same thing in his life. But that was like, it had a lot of Bible verses, and it was like, yeah, I think that says right there, like, why I should go. And so that was kind of got the ball rolling. There's, a couple things. Yeah.
And you said your husband was led the same way. Did he hear the same song?
What it was like, you would buy back, a cassette tape or
the
CD.
whole album.
And in, like, when you bought it was like a gospel tract, but it was why I should go to the mission. And I think we still have those. We kept them.
That's funny.
So it's like, basically God told us to go to all the ends of the world with the gospel. And, this man was very passionate in preaching, and just the singer. That was kind of, God used that also to give me that desire to go overseas.
That's cool. So. Yeah. Yeah, music. I mean, I had no idea. Yeah, it's cool. What would you say to someone interested in overseas missions, but maybe they're unsure if they want to go, or like where they should go?
I mean, I would say, go like I did, go on a summer or short-term mission trip just to see what's out there, what it's like. Or like where we live, there's a lot of opportunity to work or to serve, I guess, people from other countries that are here. So like where I'm working, you could jump in and do that, just to be around people from other countries, people that don't know English very well, or for me, they're Muslims, so they're dressed differently, and just to have that experience, I guess, and see, like, I don't know.
Like cross-cultural experiences.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And then maybe talk, if you go to a church, talk to your elders or talk to people and see what they think. How should you prepare and serve in your church is important too, I think. Not just the international, but also you're doing some ministry, I guess, would be good.
Yeah.
Read books, find a missionary, talk to them, and find out what their life was like. So. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Can you tell me a little bit about Mongolian culture?
So one positive thing about Mongolian culture is they're very hospitable. If you visit them, and even if you're a stranger, they'll oftentimes make you a full meal. And it's not just like throw in some spaghetti noodles, but they like sit there and with flour make the noodles, roll them out, cut them up. And it's like a long process. It's a lot of work. And they might not really have that much food like for themselves even. So that's part of their culture. So they're generous and they're welcoming you in. They'll drop whatever they're doing to welcome you in. They're more reserved. So all those years that we were there, especially our part of Mongolia where we were, I think they're more reserved. So they didn't really express a whole lot like that they were happy. I mean, they were very, very warm. They were very friendly with us, and they invited us over and all. But they weren't like showing love or hugging or like that kind of, or just they wouldn't say like, I'm so glad you're here. They're not expressive that way.
Okay.
But when we left, then it all came out. They were so sweet and like, well, we don't want you to leave. And we're, and hugging us. And it was like, wow. So like, they're very reserved, and they're kind of like, I would say like, I don't want to say tough in a negative way, but it's a very cold country, especially where we live was supposedly the coldest town in Mongolia. Like the children were just, I don't know, like they'd fight. The guys would kick each other and throw rocks at each other and be really kind of not very nice. Or like, you can't say like, I'm cold, or they're just really tough. I don't know. Tough people to, I think, endure the conditions. That's my
Is it pretty cold there?
So it goes down to at least negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit every year, but a lot lower than that sometimes, like negative 53. I have a picture of that. Our thermometer said that.
Oh my goodness.
So
I was going to say, does it get then warmer in the summer, hopefully?
Yeah.
Or what are summers like? Yeah.
So I'm talking about where we live, because it does vary a little bit, but in the 80s, I don't know if it ever got to the 90s, but yeah, it's very dry, so the sun's pretty intense. Like, it's not not humid at all. So
yeah,
I like the weather. The winters were very long though.
Yeah. So. And I have to ask too, is being on time important over there?
No.
Or okay. That was my guess, but
it seems like it's just like a Western thing. I'm pretty sure, because I've been to other countries, and although it was interesting because our church, so we were church planners, and God saved some people, and then got them together, and so we started a church. And the guy he's actually the pastor now, the Mongolian pastor. I don't know if it's his personality, probably, but he likes to be on time. But that's very unusual for the average Mongolian.
Okay. And what are the most popular religions in Mongolia?
So they're considered Tibetan Buddhist, which is, it's a certain kind of Buddhism. If you think of the Dalai Lama in Tibet, that's also the main leader for the Mongolian Buddhist, and most people would say that they're Buddhists. It's kind of mixing animism with it, which is like worshiping spirits, the spirit of the sun and the river and the mountain. So that was their original religion, and like shamanism, like a witch doctor. So they kind of mix the two, I guess, together. And some people there were also shamanists, which is more so like a witch doctor. And, it sounds pretty evil, like connecting with dead people or sacrifice and stuff like that. So Buddhism, like they'll visit a monk, and the monk will, like, let's say I'm sick, so I'll go and he'll say this certain Tibetan prayer. He'll read it, and I don't even think he understands what it says, but that's not the point. It's like they think him reading that gives him some kind of power to heal me, or to, I don't know if they do curse. The shamans will curse people. But then Mongolia was communist for 70 years. So during that time, they tried to get rid of like Buddhism, but now it's freedom of religion. So it's coming back, I guess. And people think like, to be Mongolian is to be Buddhist. So some people in our town would come to our Bible study or church, and then other people were like, you can't be a Christian. That's a foreign religion. You got to be a Buddhist. And they would kind of, I wouldn't say persecute them, but they would like ostracize them.
I was going to say, what is the typical reaction to Christianity? Like what is persecution like? Has that changed since you've been there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in the 90s, 1990 and 91 is when communism fell. And then it was like open to missionaries and more foreigners. Like before that, Americans couldn't even go in at all, I don't think. People seem to be a lot more open back then to Christianity than they are now.
Okay.
I'm not sure why. Maybe because they were open to the West more. Like, I want to see what's out there. But now there's more of a nationalistic attitude, like we're Mongolians and, we're proud to be Mongolians. But part of that is you have to be Buddhist and not Christian. So I don't know. I mean, there is some persecution, but I can't say for sure, but not much like physical harm. It might be more kind of like talking badly about a person or...
like social settings.
Yeah. And so there were like two ladies that were coming to our church, as an example, a similar situation, but somebody was sick in both of their homes. And then the Buddhist monk told them both, like, because you're going to the Jesus meetings and you have the Bibles and stuff in your house, you got to stop going. You got to stop, get rid of those books, because that's why your mom's sick. So they stopped. They're superstitious and fearful. I guess that's kind of a spirit, fearful of the spirits. I'm not sure, but so that's common.
How is the church different in Mongolia than the U.S.? I'm sure there's a lot there.
I mean, that was actually kind of a hard question when I was thinking about it, because in some ways the church is similar. There's different denominations. There's the charismatic churches. There's or non-charismatic, and there's health, wealth, the prosperity gospels there, which actually kind of fits into their culture, because they are more like, I guess you could say, pragmatic. Okay. If it works, okay, let's do it. If I follow Jesus and that makes me healthy and wealthy, then I'll follow Jesus. If following Buddha gives me a good life, I'm going to follow, so they're not, there's people that like would claim to be Christians, but there's probably a lot that really are not. And it's sad because There might even be pastors, like Mongolian pastors, that they're just there to make money, basically. I mean, we try to be careful, like, as missionaries, not to be throwing around money and stuff like that, because that, can attract the wrong, or people that are there for the wrong reason. And,
yeah.
So in our church that we started, it's more simple, I guess. It's like comparing it to our church here.
Mm-hmm.
It's small. There's only like between 15 and 20 people, like, at our service. The building itself, like I said, is small. The middle has a wood stove, because, like, that's how you're heating it. No running water. It's an outhouse. And so we have a pastor, and then singing and praying. So it's, I mean, similar in, like, what we're doing and stuff, but more simple. Yeah, and then we have some tea or coffee and a little snack at the end. And then we have a Sunday school. When we first started, or when there were first some believers in our town, the first guy that believed in Christ, we met in their house and then invited more people. And they kept saying, we did not want to start, like, we didn't want to have a building, just like, I don't know, we felt like, let's have a home church.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed more Mongolian to us, but they kept saying, we need a building. We need a building outside of our house, because strangers won't feel comfortable coming into, like, there's no connection, with certain people in the town.
Yeah.
So finally, over many years, then we did build a building for the church and stuff like that. But so that's kind of a learning curve, and for us too.
So it sounds like, there's a variety of denominations
Yes.
and backgrounds. Yeah, that's interesting. And what are things you think Americans can learn from the Mongolian church?
Mm-hmm. This is the practical thing that I thought of. And it's a small church, but I think this can work in bigger churches. But we took turns cleaning. We didn't hire a janitor, so you could do that, or like groundskeeper. I don't know, it's just like a practical thing to, like, helping each other work together. You're the body, and it's more like serving each other. And so that was just one thought I had. Also, in the summer, we had and we still do, they have like a summer camp going on. We go out to, like, a really pretty spot by the river, and literally we take everything, because it's just, there's nothing there. Just grab, take your tents, and you take a little wood stove that they're nomadic people. That's actually, I didn't say that about the culture, but, like, traditionally they're nomadic, so they're able to take whatever anywhere. That's just kind of how they're really good at doing that. You even, like, build a little outhouse out there, because we're there a couple days and stuff, and then put a little curtain around it. So I don't know, that was fun to do with our group, and just hang out together, and then have teaching and praying and singing, and
Would they have longer services probably, or?
It was, let's see, a little longer, I would say, but not, I think some of the churches in Mongolia probably are a lot longer than ours, the one that we started. So I'm not sure why, but but yes, and that's, a lot of countries, they have really, really, like, 3 hour, 4 hour,
Gotcha. And how do you think the American church can better pray for Mongolia, maybe, but also, like, just the growing global church in general?
Mm-hmm. So in general, I was thinking about the persecuted church. Now, not so much in Mongolia, but like a lot of Muslim countries, there's believers, but I'm reading these books, and it's like they can be killed, literally, even by their own family. And so just pray that God would protect them, and God would strengthen their faith and help them to keep following him. It's probably tempting to just give up, because you might be killed, or you're on the run. And so pray, I think, to be praying for the believers that are really facing real hard persecution in Mongolia. And this is, since being back in America, I've thought about our town. So not a lot of people came to know Christ. And other missionaries and other Mongolian believers that have traveled around Mongolia, like, kind of doing evangelism, they said our town and, like, the surrounding area was one of the hardest as in, like, their hearts are hard toward the gospel compared to other parts of Mongolia. Well, kind of going back to what I was saying about my own personal prayer life was really lacking. It's sad to say, but we need to pray for them, because, like, pray that God will soften their hearts. And it's almost like, I feel like it's a fog. They're just, like, in this fog, and they're really have no interest in our town to follow the Lord, to very little interest in spiritual things, and to have conversations. Because now that I've worked with Afghans and other Muslims, it's kind of, it's almost strange to me because you think like Muslims, oh, they don't like Christianity or whatever, but they love talking about what do I believe and have conversations. But like Mongolians where we were, they really didn't have any interest in that at all. So I'm like, I really need to pray that God would lift that fog or just soften their hearts and give them a thirst for him, to know him.
Yeah, yeah. And what were the hardest trials you would say you faced in Mongolia?
So an easy one that I can say, that this is one thing that happened after Jason and I got married and went back to Mongolia. 3 weeks after we got there, we were robbed in the middle of the night, and they came through a window with a knife and were wanting money. It was a long time ago, so it kind of feels like, well, it's forgotten. It's not forgotten, but like, so that affected me, I think, for a little while, maybe longer than I thought, because I think then I had kind of a fear and stuff. I had to work through that and just trusting the Lord. But then something that's more like ongoing that was hard. So Mongolians, after communism fell, their life was really hard because their economy was shaken. Things were really changing, and they didn't have jobs. A lot of people would come to our house asking for, it could be money, food, clothes, jewelry, makeup. I mean, anything really, toys. They asked for a lot of things. And it was really hard to know what to do because, in the Bible it says, if you're asked for a tunic, give them a...
Yeah, give the cloak as well.
Yeah, give them cloak as well. There you go. So it's like, well, should we just give whatever people want? And no, I don't think so. So like knowing what was the wise thing to do, that was hard. And also some people would lie. They'd say, my grandma's in the hospital. I need money for medicine or something. And then they go out and buy vodka. Or, you'd find out later, man, that person did not use the money the way they said. Yeah. They're lying to me. And that was hard because in America, generally, we take for granted people are telling the truth. Some people do lie, but like lying is like a really big part of their everyday interactions with each other too. So that was hard, I think, not to take it personally and kind of be resentful, I guess. Like they just want me for my money and what they can get. They're not really, that kind of thing. And they're lying and that kind of thing. But then again, like God would be speaking to me like, I am not any better than them. And I'm a sinner, and just like them, they don't know me. So, because sometimes I would, I think, be resentful or be judgmental of them. But God is gracious to us and patient with me.
Yeah, God is good all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what were your greatest joys then overseas?
So the one thing was the Mongolian man who is leading our church right now. Before we came back to America, my husband and then our teammate and then the Mongolian man, they would take turns preaching and leading our worship services. And I just loved hearing him. I think he was really good. And also probably because it was a joy to know like we had an impact. God used us in his life. And he was only like, I think 13 or 14 when they first arrived. They, meaning my husband and our teammates, because I joined the group a couple years later. But so I think that was a joy. I mean, there's so many different things I can think of. One is our family was taking a walk, like a 5-mile loop. We had gone on a camping trip. And suddenly we were going through a forest, and there were wild peony flowers. I don't know if you know. They're like bright pink.
I forget. Okay.
And people grow them here, like they buy them and put them in their yard.
Yeah.
So they were just growing wild, and other flowers. It was just amazing. And it almost brought me to tears. It was just, like here these flowers are, and who's going to see them? God, it's amazing in Mongolia what wildflowers grow because, like I said, it's really, really cold. It's a dry place. And then that always like encouraged me, like God can grow beauty in dry places like me. Yeah. So that was another thing that brought me joy. Our children, seeing them loving and becoming really good friends with some Mongolian neighbors is also, I think, a joy. And then 3 of the girls are following Jesus now. I mean, 3 of the Mongolian friends of my daughters.
That's awesome.
So, that's also a joy.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're talking about Mongolia being beautiful, too. Would it be like more woodsy, or like were you in more of a mountainous area, or what was that terrain like, I guess? Yeah,
where we were, it's mountainous and there's rivers. But on some pictures, if you saw pictures, there's no trees at all. But then on, I think it's the south side of the mountains, there are larch trees, which are pine trees, but the needles fall off in the winter. So then there's forests too. But a lot of it is just open I mean, there's mountains, but then in between the mountains, it's very expansive and wide open.
Okay.
So,
Like plains, yeah.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because our kids like being here. They say they miss like the open,
yeah,
expansive place. Some places in the West remind me
Oh,
of
yeah.
Mongolia, like Colorado a little bit, and then Montana. But the mountains aren't like humongous like the Rocky Mountains, but just something about
Yeah.
it's dry. And
Yeah, cool. What work do you do currently? Like, are you basically in your like serving role full time, or what does that look like?
I'm not full time, but yeah, twice a week. So I go in and I'm with the toddlers, and I pick up the moms and their kids sometimes and take them to the community center, take them home. And I love that too, because then I get to talk to the moms. I mean,
Yeah.
I love children, but I also really love, connecting with the moms. And they're also, the Afghan people are also very community and like oriented, and they like inviting us into their homes and
That's nice.
giving us really good food. And so I do that, and I also drive Amish people. Like I have a little taxi service, I guess, to make money. I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
So I do that a lot.
Side thing. Yeah.
And then I'm at home, and we have a garden and a yard that takes some work because there's a lot of trees.
Oh,
so.
yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's cool. And how do you currently seek God's kingdom first while at work or volunteering or just, through everyday life?
Yeah. So like for both the Amish and also when I'm with the Afghans or with the other volunteers, just trying to bring up, or if the conversation kind of is opened up to talking about God and what I'm learning, or just even like, the stars are really beautiful if it's early in the morning with the Amish people, but God made them, or I don't know, just trying to talk to people about God, about Jesus. And then when we're at the Afghan community, we oftentimes will pray in front, like right there with the kids. I mean, they're little toddlers and stuff, and we'll pray for the time together. And the volunteers are also believers, so oftentimes our conversation is about Jesus. So
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah. How is God working in your life today?
I think one of the things is he's showing me that I need to be more bold in telling people about Jesus. I think I'm pretty good at like engaging people in conversation. But then when there's like an opportunity, even today actually, when I was at the grocery store, I asked the cashier, I said, "Did you celebrate Easter?" And he said, "Yeah, I got together with our family." Well, I could have then stepped the next step and say, "Do you know what Easter's about?" But I didn't. And then later I'm like, it wasn't that I forgot, it was because I was afraid. And that happens. Like I need to be more bold in sharing about the hope that I have in Jesus. People need to hear about him. I mean, even if they don't, but I mean they do. And today's world is so crazy, so I feel like people are wanting to hear, and then I get afraid I don't want to offend them. So that's something I need to be more bold.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Yeah. What is something in the Bible that has encouraged you recently?
I heard a message recently. It was about the verse when Jesus says on the cross, "It is finished." And the message was about like, we need to remember our salvation is totally done by Jesus, not by what we do. Yeah, like he finished it on the cross. The pastor was saying we oftentimes start going into the mode of like trying to, I don't know, earn salvation or do good works or whatever. Like, I think the message was our good works should be the result of knowing, what Jesus did on the cross, and his love for us like motivates us, not we're trying to earn God's favor or something like that. So that was a good reminder. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And how are you involved at church?
Actually, yeah, we were doing coaching Bible quizzing for 3 years, but we haven't done that for a couple years, that my husband and I. I mean, as far as volunteering at the Afghan refugee place, our church is praying for me and connecting with me through that. But
Gotcha.
And then Up Prayer, which is, I go to that. That's for persecuted and unreached people. We get together to pray just once a month. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. How do you get spiritual rest with God?
When I take walks, I oftentimes will use that time to pray. And Yeah, I think that's restful for me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. Is following Christ worth it?
It is definitely worth it. Yeah. Jesus is worthy of any trials or suffering that we might face. I feel like in my life I haven't gone through very much suffering at this point. When I think of other people, he is worth it. Yeah, definitely, because he suffered for us. So he understands